Welcome to Hashtag General, everybody, a show where we didn't spend the last 15 minutes instead of broadcasting just getting caught up and talking about secret things we can't share with the public. I'm one of the hosts, Logan Studley, and joining me, as always, is the other host, Chris Akamura. How are you doing, Chris?
Pretty good. How's it going with everyone over there?
Oh, busy. Like, I know you had a busy week on secret things. My thing isn't a secret, but basically, we got to work with a band that did a really cool animated music video. I wrote the press release and it was sent out in under a week, which is insanely fast. So I was kind of chicken with my head cut off for most of the week, but thankfully it's out, it's in the world, it's doing well. So yay me, go me. Like, the big high point for me on that one was that the label's press release for it was actually a lot of the language was lifted from my press release, which is like the ultimate form of flattery. I was just like, yes, thank you. So
Using your
that's
words is easier than typing my
writing their
own.
own.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
You gotta love it.
yeah, so why don't we just dive in? What have you been watching or playing, Chris? And I'm guessing it's
I
all Halo.
yeah. So I put in yesterday, not so much, but the first day I put in like 5 hours. I played Halo almost all day. And not that I cooled off, but I just had stuff to do yesterday. That were a little more pressing. But it was a kind of thing where the game feels so good, and like honestly, at this point, it doesn't feel ready yet because they have a couple balance things. Like some of the guns don't handle quite as well as the other ones, and like some of them do too much damage, some of them don't do enough damage. Like just like small tweaks, but like at the core gameplay of it is so solid. And like they took it's so interesting because they took things that are like innately Halo, and they took things away. They stripped everything away that wasn't like core Halo, and then they slowly integrated them back into where like, and they didn't just take from like Halo 5, and like I'm not just talking about the recent Halos, but like the armor abilities from Halo Reach are kind of back in there in their own unique way, with like the repulsor items and like stuff like that, where they're consumables that you pick up. They added a ton of like they got rid of the boost stuff from Halo 5, but they left in the clambering so you can pull yourself up from ledges and stuff, so it's like it feels better. Like everything it feels like classic Halo. So they got rid of all the extra fluff, but like it doesn't feel bad, if that makes sense. Like it doesn't feel like anything. It feels like how if you took Halo 1 and put in like modern day times, like it feels like what that game would be today, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. The sad thing is you were giving me grief over this yesterday because I had been reminded by a certain someone named Chris that hey, sign up for the beta, and I was like, yeah, I'm totally gonna do it, and then I forgot to do it. Um, so I have been casually glimpsing from afar, and everything I've seen from the new Halo gameplay, I think it is exactly as you describe it. It just looks like classic Halo. Because
Yeah.
I remember watching, I never played Halo 5. I only ever watched gameplay of it. And it felt like a different game that had a Halo skin.
Yeah.
Um,
So they nailed this. Like, and the thing that was funny is like, so I had a friend over on Friday to play with me for the 5 hours we were playing. So we were kind of switching back and forth. And so after the beta closed, because they open it in waves, so it's like open from 5 to 9, and it's open from like 9 to 12, whatever, right? So when they closed it off, we'd play Halo like Infinite the whole day, and then we're like, let's play some like regular. So we played Halo 1, 2, 3, 4 on Master Chief Collection, and like it feels the closest to 1 and 2, but like when you go back to 1 and 2, they really do feel. I don't want to say bad, but after playing Infinite, like you can see the jump, and you're like, man, this feels bad in comparison to Halo Infinite. And, like that's saying something, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it's. I remember playing
again, I
around.
don't feeling bad isn't necessarily the right word, and like
No,
like it is. They feel dated. Let's say that.
exactly. Like uh, when we were prepping to do stuff for the Mass Effect shoot, Jeff and I played a bit of Halo, Halo 1 and Halo 3. And I think a lot of it is, I remember feeling the same way when we picked up Halo 1, where it just didn't feel as smooth as I remembered. And I wonder how much of it wasn't just, oh, they've had to like redo stuff for the anniversary edition. I also wonder how much of it is, you know, I'm playing on a 4K TV, a game that was designed to be played in 480. Like, how much of it is just literally like at things that at the time would not have been either noticed as a problem or just a more noticeable. Like the targeting reticule is giant. I
Yeah,
don't
it's
think
huge.
any game would actually use one that big anymore. It's just it definitely has a lot of legacy to it.
Yeah.
Um,
And again, I don't think it's a bad thing. I
yeah,
think it's just a thing of like, modern day needs a modern game, right? So like, it just changes, and I think they did a good job of like making enough changes where it feels modern, and then but it doesn't lose the essence and the core of it. Like I feel like Halo 5 missed the mark because it missed that essence, and like this got it back, and they honestly nailed it. Um,
yeah, because that
and it again, the way this game plays, it fuels my fire or fuels my uh conspiracy theory that they have Halo Battle Royale built and ready to go, and they're just waiting for release and waiting for like people to get their feet wet before they launch it.
Yeah, no, I think we've talked about your conspiracy theory on the show. If not, it's one of those things where I don't know if it was a conversation you and I had or if it was a
Yeah, yeah,
conversation we
yeah.
had on the show. So just a quick rundown is there are a lot of very strong hints, both in the code and some of the way the game is played, that indicate that it would be very, very easy for 343 to just flick an on switch and have Battle Royale kick in. Like almost all the tools are there. And the thing, your theory, and I think it's a good one, is that they're waiting until gameplay balance is figured out before they go full Battle Royale.
Yeah.
Because you won't
Because
know some
again, like,
things until everyone plays it.
well, and plus, like, my thing is for like public sentiment, like you can't with how Halo is right now and like the attitude around Halo, you can't release a game. You can't release it, and everyone's gonna if it's bad, everyone's gonna be like, well, you wasted time doing the battle royale.
Hmm.
So you have to wait until like public sentiment's good, and then you release the battle royale, and then everyone's happy. Right?
Yeah, because I think they
You have to
know
really the core has to be spot on before you can add on to whatever else you're trying to do.
because I think they know they have to appeal to players like me who I played a ton of Halo 1, 2, and 3, the Halo 3 the most. Kind of fell off after that. Played through the campaign for Halo 4 and it just didn't feel, and I think that was the first one by 343, and it just didn't feel right. And then I watched Halo 5 gameplay on YouTube because I wasn't sure if it was worth it to try to like get an Xbox and play it. And watching gameplay
Yeah,
went, it's not worth it. I think they know that people like me have to be convinced that it is back to basics and good in that regard before we want to jump in. And if we jump in, then yeah, turn on Battle Royale and start eating into whatever epic profits are left that haven't been taken up by PUBG. So yeah, I'm looking forward to playing it. Should totally be playing the beta, but I'm content to wait another couple months and then
I
I'll
mean they
dive
might
in.
do another one.
Probably.
Yeah, the way that this beta is going, it's not perfect yet, and it's not good. It's good. It's real good, but it's not like enough where I think everyone's convinced yet. And so like you need to I think they need to do one more test with a little more balance for it to be like for everyone to get on board and be excited.
Yeah, no. I really do hope they pull it off.
I think they will. I think they'll nail this. I think they understand at this point what what they're what they're building and what they need to do. So I have faith. I'm again, it's really good right now. They just need tweaking, and I think that the the thing I will say about Halo 5, as like as much shit as it got, they balanced the hell out of that game. That game was really good from like a competitive balance perspective.
Well,
It just
didn't
wasn't
they?
it wasn't fun. Like it wasn't super fun for a gameplay perspective, but like it was balanced as fuck. That game was real good.
Well, didn't they also try to with Halo 5 lean in harder to the esports side of things?
Yes, they went real hard. And so like they balanced the hell out of that game.
Yeah. But cool. I can't wait to play it. I played Banished. I got on a weird Banished kick because
Ooh.
gotta play that city builder that is trying to kill everyone. Though I would say, have you played Frostpunk?
No, I've not.
Frostpunk, I think, takes that even to a higher. Like, if Banished is the game that is out to get you, like, you think that, and then you play Frostpunk and you realize that game is actually out to get you. It's just that Banished doesn't care whether or not you live or die. Frostpunk is actually trying to kill you. But I did a playthrough and everything was going really strong and I got hit by a tornado. What I find weird is if you go onto like Reddit or anything when people talk about Banished, they always talk about fires. I've never had a fire in any of the cities I've built in Banished. I'm like ridiculously overdue. But that tornado hit and it only killed 10 people, but those 10 people were all of the childbearing age adults and
Ugh.
the teenagers. So I had a bunch of people who were about to die and children left, and I was just like, well, this city's boned.
It sounds like it sounds like FTL, the city builder.
Oh God.
FTL broke my soul.
Dude,
I don't think I think I've had like one successful game of FTL in my whole life.
I've never had a successful game of FTL. I always
Bro,
lose
that
on that.
game is
Like
ridiculous.
my ship is broken, battered, and just barely hanging on if I actually get to the end. And then you're in that final fight, and I'm like, my ship can't do this. Like, I need to get out of this fight. Like, I'm not
I
ready
need
for
an
this.
adult.
It's like, no. FTL is a game I should actually jump through and go and play again. But you're right. That's a game that you'll never win. But another thing I did, and this might interest you, I actually, for some reason, I threw on Thor Ragnarok on the background because I just wanted something, amusing to watch in the background while I was watching. But that put me on this weird thing where I watched the Thor movies in reverse order. So I watched first Thor Ragnarok and then Dark World and then just the first Thor.
I'm sorry you had to watch Dark World.
I don't actually get a lot of the hate for that movie.
I think it's just a boring movie with zero consequence.
You know what? I think that's fair. Actually, it's more
like I don't think it's bad. I think it's boring. And like and the thing is like in terms of looking at all of the Marvel movies, it's the one that stands out the most of like, man, this is just really boring.
You could cut it out of the entire saga and not lose anything other than the appearance of the ether. Which is, I think, a fair assessment of it. It also did probably help that it was like background watching. So it wasn't like I was actively watching Thor the Dark World. It was more like I am working on things and have Thor the Dark World playing in the background. But it's kind of interesting to watch the Thor arc where it's just like Dark World. I also think a lot of the humor that Branagh teased in Thor and Taika Waititi went all in on in Ragnarok doesn't really seem to be in Dark World. Like there are lines and
it just goes
moments,
away.
But like the comedic value of Thor as a character kind of just went away. But
Yeah.
my God, Thor might have like the most traumatic arc of all the Avengers.
He has a fucked up story and a fucked up life when you really like break it down. That dude got traumatized.
In 10 years, the guy finally comes into his own, and in that 10-year time span, his brother tries to lead an invasion of another planet. He also, like, he loses his mom, he loses his dad, he loses half of his people. And yeah, I too probably would be just sitting in my tiny cottage playing Fortnite and drinking beer if I had gone through what Thor went through.
Yeah, of course.
I'm like, I get it.
It's a
Like,
fucked up story.
yeah, he's
And like anytime you watch anything, any kind of behind the scenes stuff, like that's something that Marvel really takes to heart of like, yeah, Thor's the broken soul here. Like,
yeah, it was weird because I did that reverse order, and then because of that, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna rewatch Infinity War and Endgame just because I've kind of seen what Thor was at his basically damn near his lowest. How
Yeah.
did we get to that point? I'm like, okay, let's rewatch that low, and it's like Thor is barely holding it together.
Yeah, super interesting.
But yeah, that was the weird journey I took over the past week. But yeah, that's it for me on watching the stuff I've been watching and playing. Anything else for you?
Trying to think. I've gotten through like half of Visions, but we'll talk about that in a
We'll talk
second.
about Visions.
And
Yeah.
then um yeah, that's about it. I've just been working a ton and playing Halo.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, it's been a fun time.
Let's move on. So Apple had its California streaming event, which is really just their iPhone 13 and iPad mini event. God, was it last week? I can't remember weeks anymore. And I don't know, what were your takes on it? Because I'm actually shockingly interested in the iPhone 13. At least I'm
I enjoyed
surprised
it.
I'm interested.
I'm very happy about the Apple Watch stuff. But I mean, we've talked about my thing with the Apple Watch, and like, so I'm gonna buy that. Excited. I'm upset that they didn't give me any date. They said later this fall.
Yeah,
But
chip
yeah,
shortage is even affecting Apple.
I'm very happy though. I'm very happy with how it went. Very happy with how this all kind of transpired, and like I think there's very uh I think there's a lot there that like I think this is the conference we were waiting for a long time in terms of like all these different products. Like we've been hearing about this iPad mini redone for like
A year.
2 years.
Yeah, it's no, the iPad mini. I think especially with now and being in a work from home environment, uh I don't know if I'd get the iPad Pro again because I just don't have as much of a use case for it.
Yeah.
And so something like the iPad mini just becomes, more tempting. But yeah, it's basically they took the iPad Air, added in the chip from the current gen iPhone, so it has a better processor than the iPad Air. But it's an iPad Air shrunk down to the iPad mini size, so it gets like the new pencil support and all that stuff. So it's like what the mini has needed to be for like the past 2 years is finally here. The thing for the iPhone that really got me is I don't feel like a need to upgrade from my iPhone, but everything I'm reading is kind of shocking how much better the battery life is on iPhone, like the iPhone 13 compared to the iPhone 12. Plus, the way everyone describes it, it makes it sound like the camera is just notably better like a little, like, because Apple's been putting out incremental updates into their camera tech for basically that's the big iPhone update each year is look at the new shit you can do with the camera. And it just seems like some of the stuff they did is just more interesting to where it's just like I got like the alert from my carrier like, hey, you can upgrade to the iPhone. Like they wanted to do some promotion thing where it ended up being, in the grand scheme of things, it would end up costing me a lot of money and wouldn't actually save me any. But the tempting thing was you could trade in your iPhone 12 to get the iPhone 13, and it was just like tempting. I don't know. Like, what do you have now? I know you've upgraded recently, but I don't remember.
I have an 11 Pro Max.
Yeah. Is the iPhone 13 Pro like an upgrade for you, or is it still just like, oh, wait?
I mean, I'm pretty happy with it with my 11 still. I mean, I have no battery issues. I have no kind of slowdown or like heating issues for everything I use it for. So I'm completely fine. I think the only thing that could really get me to buy a new phone at this point would be some kind of like redesign or like some major upgrade. Like I'm not at the point where it's a major upgrade yet, right?
Yeah.
So, you know.
No, because again, a lot of it for me too is the fact that I know, well, if COVID restrictions ever stop being a thing, I know there are like trips in the planning stage with members of my family for next year, and having like a better camera and better battery life might be worth it. But I think it kind of goes down to the thing that whenever people complain about the iPhone upgrades not being that great, they are ignoring the fact that the idea that you would because I remember it used to be like a bigger thing that people would upgrade their, like, at least in like the tech space, where people would be upgrading their iPhone each year. And that has kind of died out, or it seems like no one really does that anymore. Instead they hold onto their phone for 2 or 3 years. And if you hold on to your iPhone for 2 or 3 years, any iPhone update is going to be a significant update.
Yeah, definitely.
To where it's fine if like we're only really seeing small, quote, small improvements in battery life and camera. That's fine. But it just seems like it's a solid device all around. Nothing to write home about in the sense of if someone has like an iPhone 12 or an iPhone 11. But if you are rocking like the iPhone 10 or earlier, yeah, this is a good time to upgrade.
Yeah.
Have you played around with any of the new iOS stuff?
A little bit. I've messed with the focus feature quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had some fun.
No, I've been playing around with focus so I could get it to where during work hours I can actually get alerts, or making sure I only get alerts about work stuff during work hours. So that way, because I turned off alerts for some apps just because you had no way of putting it on a timer. Like I did not want alerts from Outlook after like 5 o'clock. I just don't want them, don't need them, don't show them to me. And Focus has let me do that, so I've been playing around with that a bit. The widgets on iPad are kind of clunky in how they work on the home screen. I like them, but they definitely I remember it was a big deal when iPad OS finally let you have the same number of items on a row, whether you were holding it horizontal, like depending on the horizontal or basically portrait or landscape mode. And the new home screen, because of widgets, did away with that. And it's just like one of those things where it's like we took 1 step forward but 2 steps back. So yes, we got widgets, but now our home screens are a mess again. But whatever, I now have better weather data on my iPad screen when I open it up in the morning. Yeah, anything else from the tech side of things that you want to discuss?
No. I mean, again, it was pretty straightforward from like my perspective of it's an Apple event and it's kind of the one that we've been waiting for. And like, yeah, it didn't disappoint me.
Yeah.
I didn't walk away going like, wow, that wasn't what I wanted. Where like the other ones that we've had in the last couple of months, I was like, yeah, I'm still waiting for stuff I'm looking
Yeah.
for.
No surprises, just things that have been unexpected.
Yeah.
Um, let's move on.
Yeah.
Movies. So, I just want to know how excited are you for the fact that there's an animated Warner Brothers animated Mario Brothers movie coming from I think it's Imagination
Yeah.
or
So
Illumination or
It's Illumination. Yeah.
Illumination.
So obviously this was huge in my sphere.
Yes.
And like, you know, I'm in the camp that like I understand the direction they went. I also think that Charles Martinet got a little screwed, but like, I understand the star power that they wanted to grab here. I made a couple memes. I made one when the game like when the direct first came out. I made the Christopher Walken as Professor Egad meme. That was pretty funny. And then I made one this morning that I was laughing at that I sent to my like internal work chat that I made Kirby Aquafina because of course she would be. Um, and so that made
Yeah,
me laugh quite a bit. But
because
like it's that kind of thing. And like the best joke that I saw was someone was like, "Did Nintendo just Google actor and sign the first people that showed up?"
because yeah, no, that was my thing too. When I was reading the casting news, I was like, Chris Pratt.
Yeah,
Like,
it's just
okay.
and again, it's nothing against Chris Pratt, and it's nothing against like them hiring a big name actor. It's just like he's the last guy that I would think
I
of
know,
for
like,
to voice Mario. Now, like Anya Taylor-Joy, Charlie Day, Jack Black, Seth Rogen are all perfect casting choices in my opinion for the characters that they have.
that's my thing is like you get all of these actors who are like, yes, I totally want to see Jack Black's take on Bowser.
Yes, it's
Absolutely.
fucking awesome.
And then you like I think that's the other side of it too with the Chris Pratt thing is you can see like the reasoning behind all of the other casting choices except his, other than you were cast because you're Chris Pratt, not because you're like the right fit, weren't you?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like can I actually get the full list? Here we go. Because I remember seeing a bunch of the names and being like, yes, yes, yes. What? Like Keegan Michael Key as Toad.
Yeah,
No, it's just like there's a lot of really good names in this, and it just like. So I was seeing this. I'm like, oh man, this sounds exciting, and I'm glad that Nintendo's finally moving forward with this because this is. I feel like this is something that has been like lurking for a while. Is this idea of what if we got a Super Mario Brothers movie that was animated and wasn't like the complete catastrophe that everyone like, even if you haven't seen it, it's like it's known for being a disaster. The '93 Super Mario Brothers movie.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, we've known this was coming for years now. And like I'm happy that we finally got news because part of me was like, there's no way that they're still working on this. Because it's been a couple years now, we haven't heard anything. And so to hear this and get some news, and also like part of me was like, okay, Universal's putting too much money into the parks for this to not be a thing still, but like we just haven't heard anything.
yeah, no. So this news was breaking, and it was just like I am legit excited to see what the hell this movie is going to be, because I feel like Mario, even that its history as a platformer, I feel like you could even lean into that if you wanted to, or you could just be like full on. Well, no, Mario now exists in like these 3D spaces with like even like Paper Mario and Super Mario Sunshine and all that, to where it's just like, you know what, you kind of do really whatever you want. Though I have a feeling this is going to be totally the princesses in the castle.
Yeah.
but no. Chris Pratt.
Chris Pratt.
It's like one of those things. I like Chris Pratt in many of his roles, but this is still one of those ones where I'm just like, no, I don't know.
No, I'm with you. It's been kind of weird, kind of wonky.
But one thing I do find interesting, if you go to the IMDb page, the top billed cast member isn't Chris Pratt as Mario. It's Anya Taylor-Joy as Princess Peach.
That's pretty funny.
Maybe it's all about Peach.
Hey, man. Not down that. And I want to see Anya Taylor-Joy in everything, so.
Yeah. So, Mario. We'll have more Mario updates when we actually have trailer updates and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
Moving on to the next small item on our list, IATSE might be going on strike, and that's a good thing. Just the quick breakdown. The general exploration of IATSE is it's basically an overarching organization that a bunch of unions in entertainment and like production specifically are like a member of, because they will do like a collective bargaining agreement through IATSE with the studios who also do like a collective bargaining. So instead of being like a deal with every individual studio has a deal, they instead like do it like a industry-wide deal with an organization called the AMPTP. That's I won't break down that acronym, but that's like all the big studios plus Netflix even. And they are going on strike over hours and this is, as someone who worked in an office on some shows where I would be worn out after sitting in the office for 14 to 16 hours, I cannot imagine how much more exhausting it might be for some people on set who have also been working 14 to 16 hours. And that seems to be one of the bigger sticking points is, the 12 on 12 off like movement has been gaining a lot of steam the past few years. It's actually the longer hours has been, whether or not criminally blamed for it, it has been blamed within the industry for some deaths of some talent, because crew, cast, everyone is just, after, 4 days or 5 days shooting, on a 14-hour day, you're just like cognitively going to be not as alert as you would be if you were getting enough rest. And it seems like that's one of the big sticking points is they want, break times to be honored. So, yeah. I'm behind them. It's something it's one of those things where I've been noticing a lot more on entertainment Twitter in like the people who create entertainment. It hasn't quite broken into the zeitgeist yet. But if they do go on strike, which may happen between now and the next hashtag broadcast, they might actually have gone on strike by then. It's going to impact everything. Because like the list of unions and guilds and organizations is pretty much anything that is shot or made for television. If it is union, it is one of those unions is impacted by it.
Yeah.
And to be said, I have worked non-union shows. Union shows could run you ragged. Non-union shows are worse. I don't think there's going to be a bunch of non-union shows taking advantage of talent. I think this is necessary because,
right.
You know what? Even 12 on 12 off is kind of extreme if you think about it.
Yeah.
Because that's 12 hours on set working. That's not a 12-hour shift per se.
Yeah.
That is like 6 hours, an hour-long lunch, and then another 6 hours. So really at that point, it's a 13-hour day and does not factor in either getting to set or leaving set. So depending on where you are, and in some parts of Los Angeles, that may mean you're hitting traffic both to and from set, or if you're lucky, neither way, that might still be a 12-hour day, still might actually be closer to like 14 or 16 by the time you get home, to where you basically, you finish, you wrap, you get home, and you just go to bed. So
Yeah.
it's kind of insane, and is one of the reasons why there's been some calls for doing stuff like French lunch, which is the idea that instead of working a 12-hour day, you work a 10-hour day, and instead of having like an hour-long break for lunch, Crafty has food items like worthy of a meal available throughout the production day, because if you've ever worked on a set, you'll know that various departments won't always be working. Like, once the lighting is set up and done, depending on what show you're working, the lighting team might be just sitting around for hours waiting. They might as well be able to eat at that time. There's no reason, like, just let people take those organic breaks and go get lunch and cut like a couple hours out of the day and let everyone go home a bit earlier. It's, there's lots of things to do that a production could do to make those things easier. And so I think this strike is just kind of hammering that idea home, where it's just like I think a lot of it too is just like, after the pandemic, I think everyone is just kind of, their tolerance for bullshit is non-existent.
Yeah.
To where a 14-hour day, like, you damn well, like, it's one thing if you randomly need it. It's another thing if you schedule and plan to have multiple like 16-hour days in a row, because you're like, oh, we'll just eat the overtime. So that's a picket line I will not cross, even though I'm not in a position where I would be crossing it anytime soon.
Yeah, I feel you. Yeah, it's always weird to like try to understand unions and like how they function, because it's something where like the gaming industry just never has done that, and never is like, and so it's so different. It's such a different thing to like not wrap my head around, because I understand like how they work. I understand how unions work. It's just like it's a different like it's something that I've never had to worry about, and like we've certainly gotten taken advantage of as like a gaming industry, but like, it's something that we've never actually had to like fight against, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's always interesting to see that side of it.
Because what's crazy is, I would say half the reason why entertainment has such strong rules, and where there is a lot of like decent pay, like, once you kind of break in, it's, if you and can get into a union, that's gonna make you a decent wage. And a lot of that is, the unions in Hollywood are still powerful. There hasn't been any union busting.
Yeah.
And if you look at how entertainment operates, and then you look at other industries, it's definitely a case of where it's just like, I totally understand why companies would try to kill these things, because they sit there and they look at it and be like, but my money, and it's just like, that's just how they're going to operate.
Yeah.
But that's also the only reason why people could like live in Los Angeles and work in entertainment, where you're not working like a 9-to-5 job. You aren't working 40 hours a week for 48 weeks out of the year. You're working, in some cases, only a few months, like half of the year, but you still make enough money to survive. And a lot of that is just the unions. So unions forever. The United States needs more of them.
Yeah.
But let's get into the things that are our normal bread and butter. I finally got caught up on What If. So.
Okay. So.
I think the last one is my favorite.
The Thor one?
Thor and Captain Marvel. What if Thor was his only brother? And I love how he still has a brother-like relationship with Loki.
Yeah.
No, they're fun. I think this one falls into the criticism I've had with some of the other Marvel things, where it feels like they're trying to be like, oh, we can go for this really long runtime, to where a couple of them, like, I felt like Zombies could have been
Longer.
Shorter.
Really? I felt like it could have been longer.
I felt like it could have been shorter. It's, you know what? It's not that it couldn't have been longer. I think it is, they ended it up in this weird middle ground where it didn't cover enough, and they either needed to cut it down or make it longer. I think that would be a fair assessment on that one.
I think the problem with zombies too is like the people were expecting such more because it's such a iconic comic and it's such an iconic like what if story that like everyone, at least from like the comic book nerd perspective, like everyone knows the story, right? And so they didn't get into it enough. Where like so spoilers for the what if comic. There's a famous panel where because the Marvel Zombies comic really dives into more zombie perspective stuff than human survivors perspective stuff. So like this story was very different than what I think a lot of people were expecting. Where like in Marvel Zombies, the again spoilers, there's a famous panel that's zombie Peter Parker eating Mary Jane and crying and like sobbing and like he understands what he's doing and like he doesn't like it but he can't stop himself. So he's like sobbing as he's eating Mary Jane, which is like terrifying. And like
Yeah.
that's the kind of stuff that like a lot of people loved and like was because you're exploring a lot of like you're humanizing a zombie element here that's like very different and like that would have been really cool to see but like they really went kind of just typical survival horror with
Yeah.
it which is like whatever.
Very generic
Yeah,
zombie survival horror to where like my thing where I'm like, oh man, that ran too long is it felt like the gimmick had run its course by the time they had got onto the train.
yeah, I think if they got to the train faster
Yeah.
because from the point where they get on the train it's really good but it just takes them a minute to get there.
Yeah. It's one of those cases. Yeah, it was interesting, but I wasn't like, oh, this is great. I really did love the first one with Captain Carter and Iron Steve.
Yeah, it's
That one
the
was
with
fantastic.
the Nazi stomper or whatever.
Yeah. Um, I really did love that one. The Thor one, uh,
I really love the Doctor Strange one. That's one of my favorite ones. It's really dark.
yeah, that was a good one. Uh,
Trying to think the I'm like iffy on the Killmonger one. I was like kind of whatever on that one. I thought it was a really cool concept though, or
it
that I
was a really
really
cool
enjoyed the concept of it.
concept, but I think it kind of is like my thing with like the Marvel Zombies one, where it's just like the on the flip side, if you look at the one where T'Challa is Star Lord,
I love that one.
that was a really good one where it was enough of a twist on the original ideas with enough of an original story being told that you kept watching it and were engaged with it. Whereas with the Killmonger one, it felt like they had this idea of literally they said, what if Killmonger saved Iron Man? Oh, this would happen, and this would happen. But the idea like kind of ran its course, kind of like how I said, like the Marvel zombie gimmick had run out. Like you already know what's
Yeah,
going on. It felt like the Killmonger one was just kind of fell into the same one, where it was a very interesting idea, but there wasn't enough behind it to tell a full story. The way, because and I
yeah,
think that's the interesting thing is the ones I like the most are the ones that have had like they have a twist on the story we already know, but there's enough there that keeps you want to keep watching where it isn't just the gimmick.
yeah,
Like seeing the interplay between Carter and Steve continue despite the fact that he's not the super soldier and she is, like says a lot about them and their relationship, and it was really interesting for that to see it from that perspective.
hmm
But like there's only so many ways you can sit there and know Killmonger's up to something without being
yeah.
like, yeah, Killmonger's up to something. Okay, Killmonger's up to something. It's just like, okay, I get it.
He's a scheming bastard. Cool.
Yeah. So it's yeah, I think that's I guess the problem with What If, even though I'm really enjoying it, is that there are some of the ideas that aren't as fully fleshed out. But I think the thing too with the Thor one is it is so ridiculous and
Yeah,
a
it's
little
really
over the
funny.
top. It's hilarious. I saw one person online describe it as Thor is the ultimate himbo. And and Jane Foster falls very fast. But it's the other thing that got me is it's Natalie Portman. Like
Yeah.
that caught me completely off guard.
Well, did you see what the next episode of What If is? They teased
No.
that on Twitter today. They put out an so their Marvel Studios Twitter account put out a invitation, and it said, "You're cordially invited to the wedding of Darcy Lewis and Howard the Duck."
God, I loved that. Was one of the things that happened in the Thor one.
Yeah, so it's pretty great.
And that
Yeah, I love it.
it's a really fun series. With yes, there are some like moments that it's a little drawn out, but like when it's doing really well, it's done really well.
Yeah.
So,
Again, I don't think it's like the second. I don't think it's the greatest thing ever, but like it's a ton of fun, and like you gotta appreciate it for what it is, right?
yeah. No, I think that's a very fair assessment. Not the greatest thing ever, but it's still fun.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all.
No, there's nothing wrong with something being there. Like I enjoy going to popcorn flicks. Like not every film or entertainment property needs to be like Emmy or Academy Award worthy or Peabody Award. Like sometimes it's fun to watch something just because it's fun.
Yeah.
Moving on to the next bit of Disney Plus because we're shills. Star Wars Visions, which you said you haven't watched all of them. What was the last one you watched?
I don't remember. I've had them on kind of in the background and sort of just having them around. I've gone back and watched them. But more so than story stuff, they're just a visual treat to watch.
Yeah, there's some amazing visual. Like some of them, I would almost say that the visual is the only reason I'd rewatch some of them.
Yeah, again, like my only complaint is that sometimes the story is a little off on them. But like let me look in real quick. Let me see here where I'm at. I just finished the Village Bride one, so it's
Okay.
4.
Yeah.
So
So the one prior
the
to it, the twins one, is what I mean is like one that is very visually
yeah,
entertaining and exciting. But my God, it's like that story is just like what? It's like you took the catchphrases from Star Wars, but didn't actually
bro, them
watch
doing
Star
the
Wars.
duel, that first episode is so good.
Yes, the duel is very good. Apparently, there's going to be a tie-in novel, a
Ooh,
non-canon tie-in novel.
okay.
But I think that's one thing I am glad Lucasfilm decided when they did this project was to go in and basically tell the creators you are not bound to canon.
Yeah,
You are
like
just
go for it.
go for it. Tell something that is either a take on Star Wars or uses the language and design and worlds of Star Wars to try to tell an original story. And I think that means things like the duel are able to exist. But yeah, the duel is fantastic. The Village Bride, is that it? That's it, the name, right?
Yeah,
That one is a story that legit, you could throw that into canon now, and I'd be okay with that. 100%. Like, I think it duel, you haven't seen, I think it's The Master is what it's called. There are a few that legit feel like you could just drop them into Star Wars canon. You would just have to figure out when in Star Wars canon they would land. And I think most people would be okay with it.
yeah.
But let's all be honest. The world is a better place because we now have a concert in Mos Espa with a Hut on guitar and a Padawan on lead vocal.
It is again, it's a treat to have like even if it's not canon, just different perspectives on the universe and like kind of where people creatively want to go. And again, like Japanese studios are so like unique in the way that they tell stories, where it's such a different take that we're not used to seeing. It reminds me so much like company. A lot of companies, like it started with the Animatrix, right? But then they did Halo Legends, and then they
Mm-hmm.
did the Mass Effect. There's a Mass Effect one that they did. And like all of these are they're some of my favorite pieces of media where like you just give them to different studios, let them do different shorts. It's some of my favorite media that comes out of stuff like this, which it makes me very happy. So
Yeah,
happy to
it's
see it.
like so. Some of these are just so delightful to watch, and again, because they aren't shackled to canon, they have some very interesting takes on Star Wars that you know if they were bound to it, that story just couldn't exist.
Yeah,
And I think that's one of the things with Star Wars that, and the reason why they did it is Star Wars can spark the imagination. So why should we inhibit that?
right.
Um, to where Village Bride is just, yes, even though they weren't shackled to canon, this is a story that could fit in there. But how much of that was someone had an idea for a story and decided they were going to limit themselves that way rather than would we have received that same story if Lucasfilm went to them and said you have to do this?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And again, that's part of the joy of it, right? It's part of the excitement of like having all these different takes and having all these people come in and like with a fresh perspective, and the no shackles thing is so important.
Yeah, and it's like going even back to like the Duel, the first one. It's just clearly a Star Wars setting, but not Star Wars. But it also makes you sit there and go, what would Star Wars be like if you go further back into the history? And this is one of the, like, we've kind of discussed how Knights of the Old Republic would need to change to fit in with how canon has changed in terms of just how some things work. Like, could you go back to a point where it would be possible for, like, this Jedi to be just roaming around? And
Yeah,
that way, with enough Sith running around, that you could tell a story like that. I also love how the Duel wasn't the only one to do this, but how a few of them did a thing where they literally just used essentially a katana, but the katana was a lightsaber, so they have the hilt and everything, and they pose and hold them like you would a samurai, and it was just like perfect to do that.
yeah.
And again, that's something you wouldn't do if you were, you know. Does that mean his lightsaber's on all the time? Doesn't matter. All we know is you wouldn't do that in a canon story.
Yeah,
Because you'd be like, why have a hilt? You don't need a hilt. Or the
yeah.
little hand, like, you would just,
The scabbard, yeah.
the scabbard, yeah. So it's just fascinating to see these takes on Star Wars. And also to see some of the people who were, like, voicing characters in them. Like, I think Joseph Gordon-Levitt was in one. Apparently Simu is in one. Like, there's just lots of talented actors where I bet they went to, like, there's one with David Harbour, and it's just like, how much you want to bet that they just literally called him up on the phone and be like, hey, do you want to voice a Jedi Master? Like, hey, it's just going to be a one-off. And be like, yeah.
It's so
Want to be a
good.
Jedi? No, some, like, I think it was fantastic. Yes, there are some that I'm not as up on, like the twins, but then you know what? That's, I think, the beauty of them doing something like this is because it's, quote, not canon. I can sit there, I can watch it, I can appreciate it for what it is, and then be like, yeah, I'm not watching that again. And it's fine. I don't have to sit there and get in an argument or watch some weird thing. It's allowed to be.
Yeah.
But no, you should finish. There's a few more in there that I would love to hear your thoughts about, including the Master. God, I can't remember the name of all of them, but there are quite a few that I think you'll enjoy. So you have to tell
I'm
me about
excited
your
about it.
thoughts on the back half.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. It's one of those things where it's like if I didn't have so much stuff to do, I would be watching it more. It got to the point where like it was no longer worth me having it on in the background where it was like I need to pay attention to these now.
Mm-hmm.
Like these are getting really good. And then it was like shit, I don't have time to pay attention to these. Hold on.
Yeah. No, I think because that's the thing for me too is the duel was really good. I did enjoy the second one, which I can't remember the name of. Twins was like, eh. But Village Bride is the moment where I was like, oh shit, I can't just sit there and now tune out and put it into the background. Because
Yeah.
the duel like is very strong and it keeps your attention. The next two are kind of, fun, but then Village Bride hits and it's just like, oh, there's some stuff in here that is more than just fun and interesting takes. There's some really good stuff in there. So,
Yeah.
and some of it
I'm
where
excited.
I legit am wondering if we're not going to see these characters again. Like, it would make sense for some of this stuff to actually get pulled into canon.
Yeah.
So, Star Wars Visions. If you haven't watched them yet, you should check them out.
I'm excited.
Anything else for you, Chris?
No, I think I'm good.
Holy crap, we're under an hour again.
Hey, look at
Hey.
you.
All right. Well, in that case, James, let's roll credits. Please like, share, subscribe, do all the fun things you're supposed to do, like wearing masks and getting vaccinated. Oh, wait, sorry, that's something you should just do in regular life. For the show, just like, share, subscribe, and send us any feedback to feedback@quality3.net. Otherwise, everyone, please stay safe, take care, wear a mask, get vaccinated. Yes, I'm reminding you twice because I am tired of reading about my hometown in the New York Times. Get your act together, Coeur d'Alene. Just get the goddamn vaccine and wear the goddamn masks. My God. Stay safe, take care, and we will see you guys in 2 weeks.